Hello and welcome to another Royal Reviewer live pop-up chat. Now it feels like quite a while since I've done one of these pop-up chats. However, in reality it has only been merely a few days. So hello and welcome to the chat, and unless you've been living under some kind of a rock, you will know that the breaking news today is of course that the Queen has given her consent, her approval to suspend or prorogue Parliament for up to 5 weeks, which of course we'll be getting into in a little bit more detail. I will discuss it all at length, and I will answer any questions that you have about this and kind of what it means in the whole context of Brexit. And although obviously, you know, I do want to remain neutral on this channel, so whatever side of the debate, if you're British, you may side upon, I am literally going to be trying to just sticking to the facts of kind of what it all just means with relation to the royal family and the Queen in particular, because I know lots of people have bandied around things like constitutional crisis involving the Queen, which I will talk about at length in just a second. So hello and welcome. I hope you've all had a really wonderful day, and I'm going to go straight to the chat room now and see who is here. Yes, I think notifications are indeed going out, so hello to everybody. Right, let's just get straight into it. So yesterday, well, the media today are saying that yesterday they heard rumours that this might happen. They heard rumours that Boris Johnson, the new Prime Minister of the UK, who really has okay, let me just put it into context a moment. So currently we have had the summer recess for Parliament. So Parliament usually takes the summer holidays out, which is roughly about 6 weeks. And that's when they go back to their constituencies that elect them to be MPs, members of Parliament, and they do work within their constituencies, and they also take their own personal breaks. They go on their own personal holidays. So Boris Johnson was confirmed as the new leader of the Conservative Party, which is the party that is in power at the moment, after Theresa May tendered her resignation to the Queen. So he, after going through the Conservative Party's election process, was elected to be Prime Minister only a few weeks, literally a few weeks before the summer recess. So he hasn't actually, if you include the summer recess, been Prime Minister actively in Parliament for really not that much time at all. In fact, I don't even think he's done one Prime Minister's Questions yet, which of course happens every Wednesday here in the UK. The Prime Minister answers questions from other political parties within the Houses of Parliament, and indeed they can answer questions from their own party too. So he hasn't actually been kind of, you know, in power that long. And there's been this great debate about proroguing Parliament and involving the Queen. Will he do it? Won't he do it? Well, he's done it. So the media got wind that he might be doing this today, and it turned out that he did. He actually sent 3 members of the Privy Council up to Balmoral to gain the Queen's consent. So if you watch the video that I made earlier, I literally just showed what that document was. That was a document that was released to the media, and it does indeed show that the Queen has agreed and consented to proroguing Parliament. And now let me just go back and read that document. So it's an order approved at the Privy Council held by the Queen at Balmoral on today, the 28th of August 2019. The councillors present was the Right Honourable Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Right Honourable Baroness Evans, and the Right Honourable Mark Spencer, of course all MPs. And basically there was a few other matters to deal with as well, but the prorogation of Parliament is an order proroguing Parliament no earlier than Monday the 9th of September and no later than Thursday the 12th of September to Monday the 14th of October. So there is a range. We don't actually know the exact date that he's going to be proroguing, but it will be between Monday the 9th and the 12th of September, and it will run until the 14th of October, where we will get a new Queen's speech. So that's the time, the occasion where the Queen attends Parliament in her state robes, and she wears the crown, and she sits on the throne in the Houses of Parliament, and and she delivers her speech, which is legislation put by the government of what they're going to do for their new parliamentary session. It is important to remember that this is the longest. I think I got some stats off the news. This is the longest session that we've had for a very, very, very long time. I think, did I write it down? There we go. No, I didn't write it down, but it has been the longest period without a Queen's speech for years, and literally years and years and years and years and years. So we are kind of in need of it. It's just that it's kind of fallen, obviously, at the time of Brexit. So we are supposed to be out of the European Union by the 31st of October. And of course, lots of opposition parties and people in the media are saying that Boris Johnson is doing this as a way to kind of wind down the clock and reduce the amount of time that Parliament has to debate a no-deal Brexit within the context of Brexit. Now, of course, you know, I think that most definitely is a factor in this for Boris Johnson. It does kind of play into his hand, but also, from his point of view, we do need a new legislative programme for Home Affairs. The last 3 years has just really been about Brexit. I think that, you know, the next so many years is going to be about Brexit for the UK and how the UK finds its way in this world. Although, of course, we still haven't left yet. A lot can happen between now and the 31st of October, although there isn't quite a lot of time as what there was previously for that to happen because of this proroguing of Parliament. But the Queen always does prorogue Parliament before a Queen's speech, although the period is not normally up to 5 weeks. It could be a week, it could be a few days. It is a lot shorter. So that does kind of lead to the conclusion from a lot of people that Boris Johnson has done this to literally, you know, push out the time that it takes to debate Brexit. Of course, I can neither confirm nor deny that. Boris Johnson has denied that. I've just seen him on the news. He has denied that emphatically and said that, you know, it is to push through the government's new legislative programme. And if you want some information on the prorogation of Parliament, I have a link from parliament.uk, which I have put in the description box of this video, but I will also post it in the live chat here. So if you want to go and see what it says about the prorogation of Parliament, you can. So basically, the Queen formally prorogues Parliament on the advice of the Privy Council, which is what we've seen today. Prorogation usually takes the form of an announcement on behalf of the Queen, which is what we've got, read in the House of Lords. Well, it wasn't, I don't think, because obviously they're on their summer recess. As with the state opening, it is made to both houses and the Speaker of the House of Commons. Now, the Speaker of the House of Commons, John Bercow, he's the one that shouts, "Order! Order!" He has said that he doesn't agree with this. And MPs attend the Lord's Chamber to listen to the speech. Well, that obviously will happen on the 14th of October. Prorogation announcement. The prorogation announcement sets out the major bills which have been passed during that session and also describes other measures which have been taken by the government. Again, it will set out what the government intends to do for its coming session of Parliament. And I also think it maybe paves the way here in the UK for a new general election, which could come at any time, probably before Christmas. Maybe November. I mean, I really don't know. We are in kind of unprecedented times here in the UK where we don't really know entirely what is going to happen. I think we know what Boris Johnson, the current Prime Minister, intends to happen, but we also don't fully know what the rest of the MPs and political parties are going to do to try and stop him. Really, we are in uncharted waters. Now, with regards to the Queen and people saying that it's putting her in a political situation, it's putting her into a constitutional crisis, my own personal opinion and feeling is that it's not. She does this every time before a Queen's speech anyway, so she's not doing something that she hasn't done. She does, being a monarch of a constitutional monarchy, have to it's advisable for her to take the advice of her Prime Minister, which is Boris Johnson. So if he has advised her to prorogue Parliament, it would be the constitutional thing to do, seeing as the people have elected that government, although I should point out that the people haven't had a chance to vote on Boris Johnson himself, but they have voted on the political party, the Conservatives. So it would be more of a the constitutional crisis would be if she didn't take the advice of her Prime Minister. If she'd have turned around today and said, no, I'm not going to prorogue Parliament, that would actually be the constitutional crisis, because she would be putting her opinions and her views, whatever they are, we do not know what they are with regards to this, but she would, in that scenario, she would be putting her opinions before the advice of her constitutionally elected government. So that would be the constitutional crisis. She's actually completely averted a constitutional crisis because she has done what her Prime Minister, her duly elected representative of her government, she has done what he has advised her to do. Therefore, she has sidestepped any suggestion that she has interfered politically. Basically, if it all goes wrong, the Queen can turn around and say, you asked me to do it. You know, I am the ruler of a constitutional monarchy. I have been constitutional. So the Queen hasn't really, I don't think, done anything wrong. I don't think the Queen is in a difficult situation at all. Now let me just talk through the timetable of this proroguing. So, as I said earlier, the government is currently in its summer recess. Now, they are due to return on the 3rd of September. It kind of fits in with the UK schools time as well. So schools are out in the UK during this period too. So they return on the 3rd of September. Now, like I said, in the statement that we've had, Parliament will be suspended, prorogued, somewhere between the 9th and the 12th. We do not know which date that is yet. So that basically puts us, 4-5 weeks until the 14th of October, when the Queen's speech will take place. So the Queen will deliver that speech. Now, here's where I suppose the clock starts to get wound down a little bit. So immediately after a Queen's speech, that is the primary aspect of business by law. So there has to be a period of debate following the Queen's speech on the contents of the Queen's speech. So Parliament sits down and debates what the Queen has delivered from her government's speech. Now this usually can take 3, 4, 5 days. But it's the government that gets to set out how long it's debated for. So Boris Johnson could choose 5 days. He could choose 7 days, working days, excluding weekends. He could choose 2 days. I have a feeling it will be around about 5 days. So then, if you add maybe 5 days, it could be more, onto the 14th of October, that leaves the amount of time, reduces the amount of time that Parliament has to debate going out on the 31st with a no deal, by a lot. It reduces it by a lot. So technically we are due to leave on the 31st of October, and we don't quite know what's going to happen since then. So the estimated sitting days from the 3rd of September is 22 sitting days for Parliament. They estimate that because of the proroguing of Parliament, this could reduce by an estimated 7 to 8 days. And like I said, the longest previous suspension or proroguing of Parliament was 3 weeks. So 5 weeks is unusual, and it is quite a lot. Right, okay, after all that, I think I want to go and see what people are saying in the live chat. I have a donation from John, $1.99. Thank you so much to you, John, for supporting the channel. And of course, you get a fan clap. And if you'd like it, a kiss from me too. Let's go all the way up, because I want to see exactly what people are saying. Okay, let's go on. Colleen says, wow, I am glad you are explaining this. Thank you. Well, I hope I've done a good job. If you are unsure of anything, do ask. I've tried to really simplify it down a lot. Live, Love and Laugh says, I need to read up on this because I'm a little bit confused. I thought the Queen did not get involved. No, she's not being in... Okay, it's tricky because, of course, it's her government. She is the monarch of a country, but it's a constitutional monarchy, which means the Queen, although she does still have some residual powers, she doesn't choose to use them. What she prefers to do, or what the monarch of the day prefers to do, is to take the advice of their Prime Minister, which basically keeps them out of hot water. And keeps them out of accusations that they are putting their own personal opinions, personal feelings, personal views before that of the representatives that the people of the country has elected. So if you see what I mean, she's above politics. You know, the politics works for her. So yes, you could say that it's a political situation, but the Queen has kept herself, by doing this today, she's kept herself out of hot water. Live, Love and Laugh says, how is it going to go with the opposition? Brexit has dragged... Oh, it's gone on forever. So the actual referendum was in 2016. And I thought, you know, it's 3 years on, and it's still being debated and, you know, raked over, and... you know, the country is still, I think, largely divided on it. You know, you have those that voted to leave, you have those that voted to remain, and both sides haven't really... No one has conceded to the result of the 2016 election. I mean, obviously the people that voted to leave have accepted it, but the people that voted the other way kind of haven't, and that's where we've been in all of this hot water. And also Parliament as well is divided, so we've got a divided population, we've got a divided Parliament, and it all just hasn't sorted anything out. So but I think it is rapidly coming to a conclusion, whichever way it may go. But yes, it has dragged on for ages. H. London says, since the people voted to leave the EU, isn't that what must happen? Technically, yes. The same Parliament that's trying to stop this is the Parliament that voted to allow the referendum in the first place. Yeah, exactly. Go figure. Yes, the last state opening of Parliament was in 2017, so it has been a very long time. The longest it's been in a long time. Callie says, normally she would not, but this sounds like it's not normal, but not normal behaviour. It's normal behaviour in the sense that when you get a new government, well, not a new government, a new Prime Minister, coming towards the end of, I suppose, what would have been, you know, we would typically have had a Queen's Speech by now. So we are in the realm of having a Queen's Speech. But like I say, you know, this has, I think, been accelerated by the fact that it's around about the Brexit time. So yes, I think it has been accelerated by that. Auntie D says, so refreshing to have a topic discussed by someone from the UK. You are more than welcome. H. London says, the valuation of the British pound has been stable so far today, even though it is down from a year ago. I think it dropped by a cent, I think, against the dollar immediately after it was announced, but I'm not sure if that has recovered since then. I'm not entirely sure. Elderly Poodle says, I need to buy a copy of Parliament for Dummies. I'm going to understand it if it kills me. It's quite simple. Well, maybe it's simple to me. I don't know. Okay, let me know in particular what you don't understand. REG says, hi Elliot and all. I think there should be a vote of no confidence to force an election. That is a possibility. That could happen. The opposition leader, Jeremy Corbyn, could, probably will, table a motion of no confidence, and that could trigger an election. Oh, by the way, yes, you mentioned President Trump. President Trump did tweet a tweet of support to Boris Johnson on what he's done today. Lots of people have been talking about the close relationship between President Trump and Boris Johnson. Lots of people have been making references towards Dr. Evil and Mini-Me. They have. That's just what people have been doing. So people have been talking about the close relationship, and yes, President Trump did tweet a tweet of support to to Boris Johnson over what he's done today. Greg says the last time this was done, a king ultimately lost his head. This is not only dangerous for parliamentary democracy, it's very dangerous for the monarchy. Oh, I don't think they're going to take the Queen's head off. I think those days are gone. No, I don't think we're going to have a lynch mob up at Balmoral baying for the Queen's head on a spike. No, I think the Queen's head is perfectly safe. Those days are gone. H. London says, didn't the majority of people vote in favour of... Yes, but it was a very narrow... It was a majority to leave, but it wasn't a vast majority. Let's put it that way. Liv Lovenath says, this kind of reminds me of an episode of The Crown when the PM asked the Queen to give approval or consent about constitutional issues and the public turned on her. Well, I don't think the Queen is going to get any stick for this. I mean, the Queen didn't initiate Brexit. The Queen hasn't, voiced a public opinion on Brexit. She is being a monarch. She's being a monarch of a constitutional monarchy, and she is taking the advice of her ministers. Like I say, if anything goes wrong, the Queen can just say, they told me to do it, and I did it. So I think she's kept herself completely out of hot water. Urbanet says, it was an advisory referendum, not a binding one. Parliament has the right to amend it. They do. But can you imagine if they did, what that would say to the British people? We offered you a referendum. You voted with a majority, although a slim majority, and then we haven't delivered it. It's the people that elect the MPs. So I think it would have wide-ranging consequences down the line for the MPs. People, I think, would drastically change how they voted in the UK at the next general election if Parliament did that. And I don't know what the results of that would be. We do have the new Brexit party, led by Nigel Farage, that has entered the fray. And in the European elections, that did very well. So, in the event of Parliament, not delivering a Brexit, regardless of what type of Brexit that may be, I sense that quite a few people that voted that voted to leave may switch allegiance from their current parties towards the Brexit party, and I do not know where that would lead us onto. So that is something to consider, and I think that is something at the back of all of the MPs' minds if they don't do it. Again, I don't know what's going to happen. In that regard, it is unprecedented. Auntie D says, oh my god, as soon as I think I have a grasp on the topic, I hear another perspective. Oh no, what did you hear? Little Annie says, at the end of the day, the Queen does what her Prime Minister tells her, or there would be a constitutional crisis. Yes, the real crisis would be if the Queen didn't do it. Elaine says, we are a democratic country. Glad it's all panning out as voted by the UK people. Nefeta Bree says, from everything I have read, when the people actually voted, they really did not understand what they were voting on. They did not have anything in the conversations about deal or no deal. Yes, I mean, when the voting happened, I think the problem that where all of this has stemmed from was that it wasn't clearly defined with the initial referendum about how we would leave. It was just leave. It was just you either leave or remain. That was what it was. There was no clear definition of how we would leave if we chose to leave. So that opened it up to interpretation. Well, the British people didn't think this, the British people didn't think that. they did think this, they didn't think that, they were told this, they were told that. It muddied the water completely. So what David Cameron, the Prime Minister of the day, should have done was clearly set out, well, if we remain, it is as it is. If you vote to leave, this is what it means. It means we leave this. It means we leave that. It means we do this. It means we do that. They didn't clearly define it. So it left it open to interpretation about what people thought they were voting for. Lots of people said different things in the campaigns. And like I say, it wasn't clearly defined in law as to what it meant to leave. And that's where we've had the problems from, basically. And I hope people have learnt their lesson. If ever there is any kind of referendum of this nature again, I hope they clearly define in writing, in law, what people are actually voting for. Donna says, you have a question. Is Charles going to be king or William? Oh, Charles, most definitely. He's the next in line. Now, let's have a look. PM Smile says, you can watch live from the UK on the web. Yes, lots of our news channels are broadcast live on the web, so you can get the British perspective as well. Although I would say some of the media's, just some of the, just be careful. They may not give you a true reflection, is what I'm going to say. Let's go up a little bit. Sorry if I'm missing out some comments. Di says, I think because she's elderly and has been around for this long, they will leave her alone. But if it was Charles or William, they would take the head off. No, we don't do that anymore. We don't have people's heads on spikes. We're not that sort of people. MK says, it is an absolute disgrace that this has happened. People around me who are usually pro-royalty are seething with anger. Like I say, the Queen, it would be more a constitutional crisis. Well, I think she's averted a constitutional crisis, but it would be the constitutional crisis if she hadn't done what was asked of her. What's going on? I did see a comment about... Oh, Annette says, I've heard Boris Johnson is similar to Trump. Does that mean trade deals that both our countries need for various reasons? I don't really get the comparison, to be quite honest. Not entirely. I mean, don't get me wrong. I suppose with the hair, they look a little bit similar. And I think President Trump has always liked Boris Johnson. And I think Boris Johnson has always liked President Trump. So I think, you know, they're on a similar song sheet. But I think they both understand... about good deals and making advantageous deals for the UK and for the USA. So, you know, if Brexit does go ahead, I think there will be very serious talks on trade, although I don't think Boris Johnson will be a pushover. Like I said, I referenced this before, there has been the comparisons made between Dr. Evil and Mini-Me, and I don't think that Boris Johnson is going to be a walkover. I definitely think Boris Johnson, if, you know, these trade deals talks are allowed to happen, I do think that he will be pushing for the UK's best interests, and I think that Donald Trump will be, President Trump will be pushing for the US's best interest, and I think there will be a mutual meeting somewhere in between that will give both sides what they want, and, you know, perhaps it will be advantageous for both. Becky Ray says, why would England want to leave the EU? I'm curious. Oh, you've got 3 years worth of articles and things to look at. My God, my goodness. I cannot answer that question in one live chat. That's an entire chat of its own, I think. Urbanet says, people voted for Brexit but not for Boris Johnson's no deal Brexit. Well, again, we don't know, because they didn't clearly define what it was. Some people interpreted the initial vote as what we now know as a no deal. Some people thought that there would be some kind of arrangement, the withdrawal agreement, before we go, but there it wasn't clearly defined. So lots of people had different visions in their head about what it meant. So we can't say either way that people cannot say categorically that people did not vote for no deal, because it wasn't clearly defined. That's what I'm trying to get at. I did see a comment I wanted to read. Where's it gone? Let's go up. Where's that comment gone? Okay, I think I've gone a bit further down. I did see a comment that I really wanted to read, and it's gone. Okay, let's just carry on. Annette says, I understand your point, but it's been years now since the vote. Is Parliament like our Congress, and they just don't function? Oh, they function, but they couldn't decide. So basically, Theresa May, the previous Prime Minister, took 2 years to negotiate a withdrawal agreement. But the withdrawal agreement that she negotiated couldn't get through the vote in Parliament. So we were kind of locked. And then obviously Theresa May had to go. Well, she resigned. She felt she had to go. Boris Johnson has come in and said, really, we want a deal with the EU, but if we can't, then we'll leave on the 31st. So I think basically they want to remove the Irish backstop. And again, I could spend another whole video talking about what the Irish backstop is. But basically Parliament didn't agree with the Irish backstop in the withdrawal agreement with the EU. So it's kind of, it was loggerheads, and Boris Johnson has said to the EU that he would like a deal that doesn't include the Irish backstop. The EU has said no, it's not open for renegotiation. So then Boris Johnson has said, well, then we're leaving on the 31st. And I really tried to simplify that a lot. Di says, so there was thought into Brexit, they were all too busy being silly, but now they have to be unsillied. Oh no, they have to be busy hitting. Oh, Brexit has nothing to do with Harry and Meghan. I can categorically say that. They can't blame Meghan for Brexit. Don't even try. The Jay's Tia says, forgive me, but I'm a bit confused. Does the Queen have to do what the PM wants? If so, then why ask? Yes, it is just a formality. The Queen has the residual power to open and close Parliament. So the proroguing bit is the closing of it, and the state opening of Parliament is the opening of it. It is a formality. The speech the Queen reads is a speech provided to her by the government, so she's reading her government's words, and she does it, she prorogues it at the request of the government. Otherwise, she would be seen as interfering politically, but if it's at the request of her elected government, then that's okay. H. London says, can any deal be reached? Theresa May could not... No, she couldn't pull it off. No, she could not get her deal through. Right, and I've kind of got down, I think, to the bottom of the comments. Why is that my screen stopped? Hang on. I don't know why my screen stopped. Right, and we've kind of got down, I think, to the bottom of the comments. Does anybody have any really urgent comments on it? H. London says, the date was not established by Johnson, that was the final date given by the EU. Yes. When the deal couldn't get through, when Theresa May couldn't get the deal through, they agreed an extension. And the extension compromise was the 31st of October, which is actually Halloween. And the EU did kind of say that they didn't want to extend it any further, but they may possibly, if requested, to do so. But like I say, Mr. Johnson, Prime Minister Johnson, doesn't, I don't think, want to take us beyond the 31st. So I think it's his prerogative to leave on the 31st. In his words, do or die. That's what he said, do or die. That is his words. So that is where we're at the moment. Mrs. Penning says we really need to go back to the public to decide. Again, there would be a lot of fighting over what the question would be. Would the question put back to the public include Remain, or would it be a choice of the negotiated deal, or leave on no deal? There would be a lot of fighting about what even the question would be to put back to the British public. Right, and I think I'm going to leave it here because I think I've kind of, in a quick pop-up live chat, I think I've kind of spoken about as much as I can in the level of detail that I've been able to. So, if you have enjoyed this video, please give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to share on social media, and also hit that bell so you know whenever I upload a new video. And please leave your comments in the comment section below. I want to know what you think about all this, and also if you have any really deep questions that you really don't understand about something, let me know in the comments and I will try to answer some of them in the next pop-up chat. So, from me in Shropshire, mwah, to you all, and goodbye.